Hi everyone, my name is Cerise, and today I became, for the first time, an auntie. My brother and his wife had their baby this morning. Well, she had the baby, obviously, in any case. So I'm now officially an auntie, and now having a baby come into my life brings up the question. I'm sure you'll know this question. That's been in me, up and down, on and off, for a long time. The question is, do I want to have a child? Now, I think it's important that we do not ask ourselves, should I have a child? Because should is definitely not a word that should be involved in this particular kind of choice, because there is no right or wrong or good or bad answer. It's simply, what are we willing to live with? So when we ask ourselves a question starting with should, or including the word should, we're already kind of imposing this morality, or this sense that there is a right and a wrong answer, when there really isn't. Not at all. There is maybe the question of practicality, like if you're in a financial position to be able to support a child, yes, then okay, you do kind of have that word should creep in, because sure, if you don't have the means to support a child financially, then should you have a child at that particular point in your life? If there's no solution and no way to actually give a child the care that they need, then no, maybe you shouldn't. But I'm not going to go there right now. Alright, so where I am going is, do I want to have a child? And for me, there are a lot of conflicting points that come up when I ask this question. The first thing that comes up is, in an ideal world, and if my life was good and simple and easy, and my survival was ensured, then yes, I'd like to have a child. But we don't live in an ideal world. We live in a world where your survival is not ensured. We live in a world where people are nasty, cruel things. We live in a way where we can be also those things, nasty and cruel. And yes, even though I am making the effort day by day, moment by moment, to change those points within me, I know that it can sometimes still come out. And what if I irreparably harm this child emotionally and turn them into some kind of raving lunatic? You know? So the main points that come up for me is financial security and the sense of freedom that would be taken away by having a child. So my financial situation for me personally I don't feel like I could give the child the life that I would like to, as well as I'm not in a position to stop working. I have to do what I do in order to make the money to survive. Okay, so that's a practical point. Whether there is a way to work around that at this point in my life, practically speaking, no. But in the future, maybe. So this is a practical point for right here, right now. Then the other point is, and this is the interesting one, all the things that I would really like to do and to accomplish that I would have to hold off on if I would have a child. So this is things like working with horses. A child is a pretty full-time kind of job for the first few years, so would I still have the time to be able to develop myself in that particular point? Probably not, at least not for a while. And then the question becomes, okay, am I willing to give up all these things that I want to accomplish for a number of years in order to raise a child. I don't know. Right now, maybe not. But the important point that I'm getting to here eventually is that it is important that we be honest with ourselves about what we are looking at when we're making a choice like this. Because yes, there are a lot of different factors involved. For everyone, it'll be different points. It'll be unique points to look at, although we will have similarities with each other. However, it is not a healthy or a supportive way to go about things if we become so absolutely firmly stuck in one particular viewpoint or position, like going to one extreme and not even willing to consider any others. So, for example, I will never, ever, ever have a child, ever. No, that's not for me, ever. Don't even talk to me about children. I don't even want to look at babies, okay? That's an example of a way that we can very easily get stuck in an extreme opinion and an extreme self-belief, self-definition of I will never do those things, or I will definitely, absolutely one day do those things. And when we get ourselves stuck in these extreme positions, we don't actually stop to consider, all right, what is involved in this particular point? What do I need to take into consideration? What might I not have considered already? And when we give ourselves that moment to drop our position of extreme self-definition, then we can actually start looking at the point practically. We can start looking at, okay, what do I really want? What could I possibly gain from it? What are points that I need to consider in my life practically right now? Is it something that I'd want now or in the future? And take all of the different aspects into consideration, as well as what is practically involved in the actual day-to-day child rearing, in this, using this example. Because yeah, we always should do our best to know what we're getting ourselves into. It happens far too often when people have children or adopt a pet or something and they didn't actually know what they were getting themselves into, and they get into this emotional and physical burnout trying to figure out along the way what the hell to do. And then in those situations, sadly, a lot of the time, not all the time, but a lot of the time, the child or the adopted pet or whatever suffers the consequences of that. And as well, what comes into those situations where we haven't fully considered the choices in front of us, where we haven't fully considered what's involved and really committed ourselves to that particular choice of, for example, bringing a child into the world, is sometimes we don't effectively deal with the points that we need to deal with. And for example, the concept of freedom, of giving up parts of ourselves or our lives for the child, and then we start resenting the child for that, and that starts coming through in our behavior, in our words, in the way that we are going to emotionally respond to them. And it's like these hidden, suppressed points within ourselves that we have not faced, have not considered, have not investigated, inevitably come out, and it always affects the child. And we can tell ourselves that it doesn't, but it does. Not that it's that it's not irreversible. Yes, of course it can be changed. The child can be given the support to walk through those points, but they shouldn't have to. And that's why, within this point, within myself, if I do decide to make that commitment one day, then my most important point of reference for myself will be that point of self-honesty of, okay, I'm going to live this decision and I'm going to face whatever comes up within me during the course of living this decision, so that I do not impose anything on the child that I am having. And if I do have emotional outbursts, if I do have emotional experiences, if I do have points of resentment that come up within me, that I'm going to face them and deal with them. Because if I do not, then I do know that it will have an effect on the child, which for me is not acceptable. So, yes, this actually turned out quite long. And I hope that the point came through clearly. Forgive me if I rambled, but drop a comment, send me a message if something is not clear, or if you have any follow-up questions, anything like that. If you would like to support what I'm doing on the Get Real page, please go to the Patreon link and you can become a patron there and basically do a small monthly contribution that will help me to carry on doing what I'm doing and hopefully do it better in the future. So, thanks for watching. See you next time.